It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Tootell and Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Touchdown! Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX television.
I like football!
Now, sports talk from Montana for Montana. Live from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Coulter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. The Grizzly men beat the Cats in basketball. The Montana State women beat the Lady Grizz in basketball. And Coulter and I go to a concert. It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Outstanding to be with you on this very fine Monday afternoon. Hope you are well. Hope you are having a wonderful day. Thanks for spending some time with us on your radios, on your televisions, SWX television across the great state of Montana, and ESPN Radio around Western Montana. You can also catch us on the YouTube channel. If you'd like to check that out, feel free. Tootell and Nuanez YouTube channel, wherever you get your YouTube. You can find us on the World Wide Web, 1029ESPN.com. You listen live on the Listen Live tab. It's there all the time. It's available for you. It is there thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. And if you would like to pick up your phone and call us, 329-1899, 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Ragish Brothers RV phone line. In the show today, we are going to hear from a lot of coaches and a lot of players from two games that happened on Saturday in Bozeman. The Montana State women pretty dominant over the Lady Grizz on Saturday afternoon. And in a competitive and close, though ugly game in the men's game, it was the Grizzlies who once again came out victorious for now the 19th time in the last 20 matchups against Montana State. So we will go through all of that with you in depth here early. We'll also maybe spend a little bit of time around the Big Sky, taking a look at what happened elsewhere in the conference and where the teams stack up now, where they sit. And yes, Coulter and I will probably recap a little bit of our evening yesterday going to see Korn.
How's your voice doing?
Well, I mean, it's pretty
Mine's
obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, both of our voices not good.
It's interesting. I didn't think that I actually yelled and screamed all that much at the concert. I was too busy trying to just breathe while I was in the cement mixer or the wash cycle or whatever you want to call it when you're down there and mixing it up with the bodies on the floor, as it were. I had a wonderful time. I'm at an age now where most of my contemporaries are not doing this, which is fine with me. It doesn't bother me to be doing the same thing. But also, I have graduated into a place, or maybe, I don't know, devolved into a place where I am so happy because I view this as tremendous cardio. I hate, I don't want to go to the gym, really. I can't really run. And it's like, hey, maybe there's a great rock concert I could go to, and I can burn a couple of calories.
I think you would have gotten in a fight in the seats I was in last night.
Oh.
They asked us to sit down. I was like, well, no. I'm at a heavy metal concert.
Right.
At the very least, I'm going to stand.
Yeah.
It was an amazing show, though.
Listen, I realize it's not for everybody, okay? We can talk about the mainstream at one time and kind of the odyssey that was that, the new metal wave that sort of came through for a couple of years or whatever. So I understand, there's plenty of people listening going, really? Really? And that's okay, but I had a grand time, and there is a level at which, if you're just talking about the sheer energy of it, it can't be replicated in other, ways. You're not going to go to a folk festival, not that you would want to go to a folk festival and see what you got last night, but it's just the level that you just get to in a setting like that is just not gotten to elsewhere, and so it is for me.
My head's still ringing, and it was totally worth it. It was outstanding. I mean, I was thinking about Korn, where they fit in to just.
Well, now, do you want to do this now?
We'll get back around to this, but either way, I thought that Missoula wasn't quite ready for what they saw last night, and I was very ready, and I thought it was great, man. I had a great time.
I did too. I'm glad we could do it. That was fun, and our thanks to the band for paying Western Montana a visit. Colts, let's talk a little basketball, shall we?
Let's do it.
The Montana Grizzly men played Montana State 7 o'clock on Saturday, and the only player that could buy a bucket was Kendall Manuel, and fortunately for Montana, he bought quite a number of them. He went 8 of 16 from the field. He went 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, and I think he had like 14 points in the first half of his game-high 19 in a half that was 28-20 at halftime. I mean, the Bobcats, there was just no answer offensively. Harold Frey was clearly not 100%. I give him a ton of credit for going out there, and he was good in this basketball game, and he was great for 60 seconds of it, which we'll get to, but he was not himself and couldn't be, and it was clear. Also, credit to the University of Montana defensively. That is where they absolutely keyed in, as you'll hear from coaches and players in a moment. But that was they were great on that half of the ball, and consequently, it was an ugly game from the fluidity and the scoring standpoint of it. If you like physical basketball, if you like tough-nosed defensive games, this was the game for you. But 59-54 the final, a close, competitive game, but ultimately, as it came down to it, there was maybe one moment where you thought maybe Montana State could actually kind of maybe even this thing up, and they couldn't. And Montana, once again gets a win and stays on top of the Big Sky Conference.
I'll correct you. Manuel had 12 of his 19 in the first
12?
half.
Okay.
The reason that's of consequence is because all 3 of his second half field goals that he made, he pushed the Grizz lead to 8 points. So
right?
Montana State was within either
6.
5 or 6, and he pushed it to 8.
Wow!
So he hit dagger.
But yeah, that's that separation between a 5 and a 6-point lead and an 8-point lead. It's hugely significant in the psyche of a game.
And the reason that's important is because Montana State, they pulled out all the stops. That was one of the most electric I've ever seen. Brick Breeden Fieldhouse was one of the best atmospheres.
It's great.
And it was absolutely the best non-Tyler Hall atmosphere that I've ever been in at the Brick. I mean, from the whiteout to everybody wearing the throwback Universal Athletic hats to, a community, that basketball community that was already abuzz because the Montana State women just had their way with the Lady Grizz. And I think Bobcat fans relish that as much as anything because of just the years and years and years and years of dominance of Robin Selvig and the Lady Grizz over Montana State. The tables have completely turned. But then, the Montana State women, they cut down the nets. And so then they're honored wearing their Big Sky Championship T-shirts 5 minutes into the game.
Big standing ovation, multiple standing ovations.
Then the under 4 media timeout right before halftime. Here comes the football team walking around with the Great Divide Trophy. Got guys doing backflips on the court. The place is going nuts.
By the way, I thought one of those backflips was going to be a bowling ball to the pins that were the rest of the team. I mean, he comes at a run.
And he almost didn't get it.
Right. I mean, I thought we could see an injury here. It was close.
It was close.
But yeah, it was again, a big moment in the room, in terms of the energy and the excitement for Bobcat fans right there.
And I think that sometimes we take certain things for granted. Montana has dominated Montana State. Now, 19 out of 20, that is now, with the exception of the way that Montana has dominated Idaho State, there's really no other pair of teams in the entire league where one has had the upper hand as consistently over the other one. And then you talk about the in-state rivalry. I think that it's almost a foregone conclusion now that the Grizz are going to win these games. Therefore, we never really acknowledge the football game has so much passion and energy behind it. So often being able to manage the moment is always a storyline, no matter what. Even if the teams are far apart in record or quality of play up to that point, who can manage the environment? For whatever reason, I think we just take for granted the way that this Grizz team or this last several Grizz teams, I think this is one of the greatest testaments I could give to Travis DeCuire. We never even acknowledge that the environment might throw these guys off. Yeah. They're so good that we just say, okay, did they play well or not? And if not, basically we just say that they are the ones that control their whole destiny. At the end of the day, they're still kids. Simon Bridges is the MVP of the league in my mind right now. He was nervous. he was absolutely nervous in this game. You could tell he did not find a flow until the end.
Yeah.
Every time he was back on defense, he's yelling at himself, "Come on, Saeed, let's get this."
And I think I want to say Saeed's nerves weren't about the environment per se, or it was, I think, a recognition of the end and the last opportunity to do this.
Totally.
Not because, of course he knows what he's getting into. He knows what the deal is going to be like. And when you really want to perform, you press sometimes, and he ended up playing really well and was integral to this win, but wasn't himself. Some of that was Montana State, and some of that was him.
Despite all that pageantry in the first half, Montana goes into halftime with the lead. Montana State never had any semblance of momentum, really. They were trapped. Montana was trapping Jabril Bello in the post. That really threw off Montana State's offensive flow. Harold Frey, he wasn't 100%, so when they were trapping him off the ball screens up top, he couldn't turn the corner like he usually can. So Montana navigated the whole thing. Then at halftime, we saw the craziest thing we saw all day. Absolutely the craziest thing we saw all day. Joe Thompson.
Joe Thompson. Now, almost everybody listening to this has to know this by now.
I mean, it's like got millions of hits on social media.
He's on Pat McAfee. But he's got to make 5 shots, and with each shot that he makes, they add another 1 to the dollar figure that they're going to give him. So if you make a layup, you get $1. You make a free throw, now you got $11. You make a three-pointer, you got $111, and so on. So he gets up, even free throw or layup, free throw, good. Three-pointer, I'm going, what's he going to do? First one didn't go in, and then he banked the second one in, and he's got, a very sort of average-looking, college kid shot who's not a basketball player. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But he got it to go, and you're like, wow, $111, good for this kid. Goes back to half court. First half quarter,
bang,
good, and the place is going crazy. So now he's got to run 90 to the other baseline, 94 feet. And you go, I can't believe this guy's walking out of here with over $1,000. Like, that's unbelievable. Now, he can't even throw the basketball the length that you need to make a full court shot. He's whipping this thing like it's not a shot put. It's not an over-the-hand like football deal. It's like a sideways turn whip, like almost a hammer throw.
Like a discus.
Yes, like a discus. That's what it was. It was a discus throw. And the first one not only doesn't get to half court, it goes into the media. First of all, into the stands because he's trying to throw it so hard, and he keeps sort of opening it up a little more, and sort of by degrees gets closer and closer. Now, he's on a 60-second clock. He made the first 4 shots quick.
12 seconds, 13 seconds.
So he's back there. He's got like 35 seconds to pull these. And you go, there's no way. There's no way. He's not close. And then all of a sudden, that's a little closer. And then he gets one, and it's like, whoa, from my angle, the arc is right. Like, it's there. It was an air ball, but it was like on, like you're like, whoa. The second to last one as the clock is winding down, did it hit the backboard?
Hit the backboard.
And you go, oh, my goodness. I mean, he's all of a sudden all over it. But there's just no way. I mean, you're throwing the ball so hard. There's no touch involved.
I know, and I thought that he was going to throw his arm out because he took like 6 or 7 shots.
Just ripping on this thing. Unbelievable. Off. I mean, hits the backboard, banks it in, pure as the day is long, and easily the loudest moment of the entire day.
Dude, I haven't cheered at a live sporting event in 10 years.
Absolutely.
Because I'm always wearing a press pass. I don't have a rooting interest in any stuff. I just enjoy watching sports. I fell out of my seat. I shoved my brother over the chairs in front of him. I was like on the 3rd row. He was in the 2nd row because he was just like, recapping the first half or whatever. We were just BSing. And I fell over the table and then shoved him over the chairs.
It was an unbelievable moment. The place went crazy. Jeff Cho, God bless him. I thought he was going to break this kid's hand in high fives.
Cho was on SWX. He was on SWX Montana doing a halftime interview.
Right.
He took the headphones off and goes sprinting over here.
Yes.
So the kid, Joe Thompson, he works at Montana State, or at least he did. He worked at Montana State up until very recently, I think. He's still in school there, but he helps out with some of the video work. And so the athletic department people know this kid too. So I think that made it even cooler.
No, it was great. Then
all of a sudden the place is just even more abuzz.
Right.
When the Grizz come out and they take every punch. They go on a 12-0 run to push it to as many as 16 after the Cats went on a little spurt. And then they kind of just kept it 10 for the whole rest of the game.
And I give Montana State credit because they worked back into this thing. They were down double digits into the teens and got it back to 4 with like 2 minutes to play. But just couldn't quite close the deal. Let's hear from a couple of coaches here. We'll start with Danny Sprinkle, just talking about, the loss and what it is to lose to obviously a very good team, but in the rivalry game.
Anytime you lose, there's just so many things you look back on that, could have changed. I mean, I think there was 2 minutes left, and we cut it to 4 and kind of put a little bit of pressure on them. They missed the shot and got the offensive rebound. I think it was Carter. I think he's the one that got it and scored it to go back up 6, where you get a stop and you come down and score. Now it's a one-possession game, and, you never know what happens after that. But, I was proud of our guys for, fighting back, because it's not an easy team to fight back against. It's the best defensive team in the league, and I thought they were terrific tonight defensively.
So there you go. Danny Sprinkle talking about that defense. He was asked specifically, about the defense and what makes it so tough. I thought his answer was worth listening to.
I think just, their pressure, they were there on every catch, and they would double Harold, and they would we call it full rotate. Like, they'd even have their 5-man coming out of the hole, closing out to Layden in the corner, and he was there every time. They were on point, and they were sharper than us defensively. I know that. I don't even have to watch the film to say that. And their seniors made plays. I mean, Pritchett's just a problem to guard, anyways. We tried doubling him last game, and he diced us up because he can pass it. Tonight we tried to play him straight up. He's just a damn good player.
It's interesting, too. I mean, he points out Syed Pritchett specifically, who didn't have his best night, as we talked about, and yet defensively he probably had a really good night and still causes problems in general. He's spent a lot of time talking about the defense there. The opening statement for Travis DeCure, guess what he keyed in on? How do you win?
Defense wins games. There'll be nights where we struggle a little bit offensively. 48% is good for us, and it's grabbed me where we're 49 on the season. But to hold an opponent under 40, you're always going to have a chance, right? We forced quite a few turnovers, which we was part of the game plan. Biggest thing for us is adversity, right? And I thought we did a good job of handling tonight. We could have been a little better in some stretches, but we snapped out of it. And the seniors, they helped us finish the job. They bent a little bit, but they didn't break. And that's a sign of a champion.
All three of the seniors. I mean, when you only score 59 points, those guys combined for, count them up, 42 of them. Jared Samuelson had 10, Syed Pritchett had 13, and Kendall Manuel had 19. So even though there was no real runs or no real there's a couple momentum swings, but not really. This was a pretty
grinded out basketball
ugly game, man.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the Bobcats intentionally wanted to make it ugly and slow it down a little bit. I said it before on the show, and I'll say it again, man. Danny Sprinkle deserves a ton of credit because, I mean, honestly, they're just not very talented.
They don't have those guys. They don't have that level players broadly in the Big Sky. There's some good players, but
I was also thinking this. I'm going to ask Sprinkle this tomorrow morning when we talk to him. When you just look at their roster on paper, you see Jabril Bello and you see Devin Kirby. Those two guys give them unique size for the Big Sky Conference. No one else in the league has two athletic 6'9" to 6'11" guys. Kirby is the tallest player in the league besides that Oregon State kid. Adam Wilson, I think is his name. Justin Wilson. Jack Wilson, excuse me.
There you go.
From Idaho, who's an Oregon State transfer. He's a true 7-footer. Besides that, Kirby's the second tallest guy in the league. But they don't play well together. It just clogs it up, and I think it clogs it up for Harold Frey too. Bello is a planted on the block, post up guy.
Yeah,
I only remember him passing out of the double team they were running maybe twice the whole game. He's not a passer. He's nothing but give me the ball. I'm gonna score the ball when I get the shot. That's good. He's powerful. He can do it. But against traps and stuff like that, it's gonna make it muddied a little bit. Devin Kirby averaged like 7 or 8 points per game last year with the ability to make one shot. The dunk off the pick and roll.
Yeah.
They don't run that anymore. Where was Harold Frey at his best? Ball screen, and then either get to the mid-range, get to the rim, or throw the oop.
They tried to do it once, and who was there? Syed Pritchett to knock the thing away. But, yeah, I mean, We haven't seen much of that
It's just
this
interesting because they have this, what you'd think would be an advantage, and it's not really an advantage for them. I think it clogs it up for Harold Frey. I think it clogs it up for Ahmed Adamu, and I think again, I think he deserves a ton of credit because the fact that they're sitting at 8-8 in league, they have a winning record overall. They're overachieving because they have some pieces. All those guys I just named are all talented players. I'm just not sure how well they go together. I mean, Adamu is a freak athlete. I mean, he might be the best athlete in the entire league.
His steal slam dunk at the other end. I mean, he's not taller than me.
No, he's only 6'1", probably.
I mean, yeah,
6 feet. So I mean, he's not.
We're right there, and he's got a little more bounce than I've got.
And his motor is insane.
Yeah.
But again, I just don't think that him with Frey is not like that good of a combo.
But again, this is the thing. 35% from the field, Montana State in this game. 3 for 20 from beyond the arc. And at one point, Layden Ricketts and Caleb Bellis were both in the basketball game, as well as Ahmed Adamu. They worked the ball around to all three of those guys in a sequence, and it was inside your jersey defense when Ricketts and Bellis touched the basketball from whoever was guarding them. It was an absolute, you are not getting a shot off deal. The ball goes in the corner to Ahmed Adamu, and they just said, yes, this is what we want. You shoot the three, we're going to go get a rebound. And they just immediately, they're like, if he makes that shot, so be it. We want him to take it. You know what? He went over 4 from beyond the arc. And he's a tremendous athlete, but he's not a great finisher yet. He could be, but,
he's a great finisher when he gets to the rim. He settles for that stupid 10-foot, 12-foot pull-up.
And he doesn't make it. He doesn't make it enough to make it worth your while. And so, it's a good scout. When these guys are on the floor, these are the guys that can hurt us from outside. So you're coercing the guys you want to shoot the ball at that point. Last Cat Grizz game of the regular season, and even if they meet in Boise, it's just not the same. When you're talking about a home environment and 7,000 people and the whole thing is a great environment, both in Missoula and in Bozeman. And this, in that regard, is the last one for Saeed Pridgett and Kendall Manuel. They were both asked about this rivalry and what it's meant to them.
Special, I guess, because being a Montana kid, this is what you live for, and it's what rivalries are all about. So it's something I'll never forget, and I'm very thankful to be at Montana.
It's a bittersweet situation, because not many places you could play again have an environment like this, even at our house. So just not knowing if you would be able to play another rivalry game like this is kind of tough.
So there you go. Kendall Manuel says it's special, and Saeed Pridgett's bittersweet, man. I want to keep it going with this, and it's cool. I thought, by the way, we don't have it here, but I thought Ahmed Adamu's reaction too was great in the press conference where he was asked about it, and he's like, "Look, there's not very many people, even if they're playing basketball, that get to play in a game like this. Yep. It doesn't exist." And so he said it's a blessing for me to be able to just be on the floor and play in this game, even though it didn't go the way. And I think that's great perspective from a young man from the UK, right? Isn't he?
He is
from England. So that was very cool as well. And again, it was a great environment. Back to the game though, specifically. It's Tootell Nuanez 102.9 ESPN Radio. Harold Frey had 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, but he had 9 points through the first about 38 minutes, and then did what I think is my favorite characteristic about him, and he's got plenty of them. But his team is down. The game is slipping away. And even, the bad ankle and everything, he says, no, we're not done yet. This is not over. I'm taking care of this. And on a night where the Cats were 3 of 20 from beyond the arc, Harold Frey steps up and knocks down a 28-foot three from straight away. I mean, he was 5 feet beyond the arc and buries it and gets the crowd into it. Next possession, they get a stop, comes down, and one at the hoop. Makes the shot. 6 points. He goes on his own personal 6-0 run. Then it wasn't the following possession, but the next one. Another and one. He scored 9 points in 60 seconds of game time to make this thing. And you go, oh, man, after all this, I think right there, it was a 4-point game with maybe 60 seconds to go. And it was all Harold Frey. So I wanted, in the presser, just ask him about that stretch. How are you able to sort of find that moment within yourself to push this game when really it wouldn't have even been in doubt?
Yeah, it's nice to see it finally going through the basket. Maybe I should have been more aggressive earlier on. But, yeah, that just wasn't how the game panned out. But, yeah, it's too little too late. I think we did. Especially at times, I think we played really good defense, but we just couldn't take advantage of those stops we were getting on the offensive end, and that hurt us in the end.
It was, and he kind of deflected a little bit, talking about it. But it is. I mean, there's certain guys who meet the moment, and Harold Frey has consistently met the moment, even when, again, it's the talent pool isn't what it is in terms of just the whole 13 player group that it is in some other places. He has, answered the bell in a way that, any coach will love to have.
I can already tell you, I'm going to predict the future right now.
King of Norway.
If the Big Sky coaches don't vote him first team all league, I'm going to freak out on this show. Like, if somebody else from a team with a lesser record, I don't even care what you're saying. I mean, right now, they're alone in fifth place, so he can't be the MVP, but he's the most valuable player in the league to his team. He's the most important player in the league.
Yeah. There's
I mean, they are like 0-4 if they don't have him.
Right.
He's so tough that on a second deep three-point attempt, the defender ran under him and he landed on the ankle. And he played the last 2 minutes and 5 seconds of this game. He couldn't even play on defense. Check out and then check back in. And they were fouling and they were doing that whole game, but he was still the guy to spring up the ball up the court on offense. And, I mean, he could barely even walk, and he was still getting and ones. Impressive. I felt really bad for Harold Frey after the game, only because he's such a classy kid. You could tell he was just devastated.
It hurt.
It was really hard to talk to him.
Yeah, totally. On the other side of that coin, though, Saeed Pridgett and Kendall Manuel, yet another win. Ask Saeed Pridgett just about the grind that this game was. He did work through it, but it took him some time to sort of get into a bit of a flow. That's what he had to say.
Like Kendall said before, me and him both take on the scoring for our team, but just knowing, like, if it's not my night, I got to be able to accept that and just let my teammates work it out and see who can be the next high hand. So just knowing I started off kind of well in the post, and then they started kind of helping off and doubling me and just being there in my spots that I wanted to get to. So I kind of just had to back off and let my teammates take over the game on their own.
Well, they did that, and I wouldn't say that he backed off, but I understand what he's saying. He took a majority of his shots in the first half and then was more of a facilitator in the second half. But really it was Kendall Manuel's night. He had 19 points, as we talked about, 13 of them in the first half. He scored, 20 for Montana State. He's got 13 of them alone by himself for the Grizzlies, and the Grizz only had 28, going into the break as well. So he was a critical facet in their success, not just in this game, but in sort of keeping them above water and where they wanted to be heading into halftime. Asked him if he was able to sort of sense the reality that, the scoring was going to fall to him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we're struggling on offense, I know either Saeed's going to step up and make plays or I'll step up and make plays. That's just how it's been this whole year. And tonight was just my night, and got it done. And I got good guys around me that find me when I'm going and stuff. And so, like Coach said, we were trying to draw a play. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't, but we were finding the open man. So that's what was important.
There you go. Kendall Manuel, Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. On the other side, the Grizzlies are now 13-3 in Big Sky Conference play. Montana State is 8-8. Still tied for fifth and in position to get a bye in Boise. Where does this game and this weekend leave these two teams, though, in the last 2 weeks of the season? We'll discuss right after this. At the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. The Silver Slipper is your sports headquarters. 56 television to watch any games on, drink specials every single day, a full liquor store, Tarantino's Pizzeria, and the friendliest staff in town. Visit thesilverslipperlounge.com for more info. Stop by today. See why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey, it's David with Garden City Plumbing and Heating. When clogs occur, water is stopped from draining properly. If it can't go down the drain, chances are the water is going to want to come back up, causing dirty water to make its way back into your home and potentially causing serious damage. If you are currently experiencing slow or backed up drains and would like to have an expert come out and take a look, contact us today at 728-5550.
Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree Podcast, Episode 6 is out now with Pat Kennedy. Pat Kennedy was the head coach of the University of Montana for 2 seasons in 03 and 04, in between Don Holst and Larry Krastowiak. He's the one head coach since Judd Heathcote who was outside the University of Montana coaching tree, and his short tenure as head coach at the UM was largely unsuccessful, going under 500 both seasons. That said, his tenure at the University of Montana also marked a turning point for the Grizzly program. What started with great optimism and eventually led to the program giving way to Larry Krastowiak and Pat Kennedy's personal story are also very intriguing. An assistant coach to the great Jim Valvano, and a head coach to a bevy of first-round NBA picks, including Heisman Trophy winner Charlie Ward at Florida State. Our conversation with Pat Kennedy is both illuminating and highly entertaining. So check out Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree Podcast, Episode 6, out now wherever you get your podcasts. Grizz Greats is brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, Stockman's Bar, and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. The Montana men's basketball team beat Montana State for the 19th time in the last 20 matchups Saturday night in a game that was an offensive struggle and went to halftime 28-20. The Grizzlies emerged with a 54 win, holding MSU to just 35% from the floor and 3 of 20 from beyond the arc. In their final regular season Cat Grizz game, Kendall Manuel finished with a game-high 19, including 3 of 6 from 3, while Saeed Pridgett finished with 15.
MSU senior Harold Frey led MSU with 18 points. Despite being limited by an ankle injury he suffered Thursday night at Portland State, an injury he re-aggravated in the final 2 minutes of Saturday's game. The win pushes Montana to 13-3, still a game ahead of Northern Colorado and Eastern Washington in the Big Sky standings. Montana State dropped to 500 at 8-8 and are tied with Portland State for the 5th spot in the league.
In the women's game, Montana State dominated from the opening tip to the final whistle, setting a new high watermark for scoring against the Lady Grizz in a 92-78 victory. Montana State had 6 scores in double figures, including 5 with 15 or more, paced by Fallon Friggi, who had 18. The Lady Grizz had 5 players in double figures, led by Emma Stockholm, who had 16, but no answers defensively as the Cats went 12 of 29 from beyond the arc.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
3 nights at the motel under street lights in the city of palms. Call me what you want when you want if you want. And you can call me names if you call me up. 3 nights at the motel under street lights in the city of palms.
Like this track, Colter.
I know you do.
This is in the A rotation in the Tootell household, despite what did you call it? Halloween black metal that we were listening to yesterday. I don't know if I'd put it at that spot quite. In any case, enjoy. Hope you are enjoying this at home or wherever you might be. It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, YouTube as well. You out there looking for us? We appreciate it. Yes, I did get a quick makeover in the break. You're welcome if you're checking us out on the visual side. Coulter, want to talk about where this weekend leaves these two teams in the last 2 weeks of this season. For Montana, they keep pace because Northern Colorado and Eastern Washington both won on Saturday as well. So the Grizzlies are up by a game on those two teams. Montana State, they dropped both games this weekend, and it's a tough weekend. I don't know that it's entirely unexpected to go on the road to Portland State and then turn around and play Montana, but it is what it is. They, though, are still tied with Portland State for 5th place in the Big Sky Conference at 8-8. They are still, absolutely in the running for a bye, which at the end of the day is kind of what it's all about. But as you look at the last 2 weeks, they go on the road this week, the Cats and the Grizz, and then will return home to Bozeman and Missoula, respectively, for the last 2 games against 2 good teams, by the way, in Northern Colorado and Southern Utah on that last homestand. Where are you at with these 2 schools as we head in the stretch run here of the regular season?
Well, the Grizz are going to get the best shot of several good teams. I mean, everybody that they play, even though Sac State's record is not great, Montana has always had problems playing at the nest. Sac State has a lot to play for still. They're 7-10 in league, so a strong finish. They could get themselves up to maybe the middle part of the league, the 6th spot. I mean, the 5 is probably a little bit unrealistic, depending on what everybody else does, but not completely, especially because they play the Cats. And so if they were to knock off the Cats and the Grizz, now all of a sudden Sac is back in the mix for sure. Montana struggled at the nest traditionally. This year's Cat team, the best matchup in the league for them is Sac State. So that could be a game where they could get rolling a little bit. But we'll see. I mean, to me, I think the Grizz can taste it. I think that they've got their last real hurdle out of the way with the rivalry game. And now I think they can just really work on peaking. And so I think that they have a real chance to run it the rest. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I mean, what do you think? If they were to run the table, they go on the conference tournament on a 10-game winning streak. Mm-hmm. Is that a good thing?
I'm not sure. Sometimes I think let's put it like this. I think it matters for some teams. I think for other teams it doesn't matter as much. And sometimes I don't think you know the answer until the end.
Right.
As usual, I often think too much is made of this stuff, but there is no question that losing a game late if you're a good team is a great motivational factor for a coach to use, and I don't think anybody is able to manufacture that better at this point than Travis DeCure.
Yep.
The only thing is this, at Northern Colorado and at Sacramento State, I don't think those are games that the Grizzlies are going to lose. Like
at Northern Arizona, you mean?
What did I say?
Northern Colorado.
I'm sorry. At Northern Arizona and at Sacramento State, they're better than those 2 teams. They've already beat them. I understand when you go on the road, like you said, the Nest has been historically, a tough place to play, but I don't think Sacramento State's as good as they've been. Justin Strange, graduating and so forth. So I like Montana to win both those games. Northern Colorado is to me the next best team in the conference, and I can't wait to see them play live in Missoula on March the 5th. Travis DeCure does not lose to teams that he's already lost to in the regular season. That has been generally the case because he's going to go back to that film in Greeley, especially now in Missoula, and go, you think you're the best team, but guess what? You're 0-1 against this team. They're better than you. So prove to me that they're not.
True.
The Southern Utah game I find to be very interesting.
Yeah, Southern Utah is struggling all of a sudden. They've lost 4 in a row. I think that they're really having some rotation issues. Mm-hmm. I mean, Johnny Knight III he's a Pac-12 transfer coming off the bench, but now he's not coming off the bench. But then sometimes he is still, and nobody really knows what his role is. But I mean, he's their leading scorer, and sometimes that's in starter minutes, sometimes it's not. And I think that there's only one basketball, right? And Southern Utah, they just have a lot of options, but I think sometimes that's not necessarily a good thing.
The only thing I'd say as far as that goes is this. Those are the Southern Utah. One thing you can say for sure is they are tremendously talented. They're one of the most talented teams. You just talk about the individuals in the Big Sky Conference. Okay.
Yeah, they have 7 real deal guys.
When you're Montana or Montana State, that hurts you the most against those teams because even when it's not going well, when they get into an environment where all of a sudden it matters to them because they're playing a really good team like the Grizzlies and in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people like you would expect to be at the last game of the season, they're going to be up for that game. And all of a sudden, if they can tap into and harness the talent, they can play, if I might say it like this, the most better, further above what they have been in those sorts of games. So, look, if Southern Utah loses their next 3 and rolls into Missoula on a 7-game losing streak, maybe they're throwing in the towel. I don't know. But their talent says that they're better than what they are, which does happen, and we'll see if they can turn it around. But I think, if you're going to ask me, is that a losable game for Montana? Yes, there is. I could see a scenario in which Southern Utah wins the last game of the season in Missoula. I could see that, and I don't know. Like you said, that might not necessarily be a bad thing in the grand scheme. That does depend on how the seeds are shaping up.
David points out John Knight actually went to Utah State. He's a Utah State transfer, so that's not a Pac-12. It's Mountain West. I get confused because there's only one guy in Southern Utah's rotation that's not a transfer.
So by Mountain West, you mean the actual best conference in the West?
Right.
With San Diego
Utah State might be the best program in the West going right now.
Is
San Diego State, right?
San Diego State, Utah State, and Gonzaga.
I get it crossed up because every guy on Southern Utah is a transfer, so it's hard to keep it all straight.
I understand.
They literally do have
disrespect BYU.
Yeah, no, true.
BYU is good.
Isn't it BYU Gonzaga this week?
BYU knocked off Gonzaga at BYU.
Oh, so that already happened.
Top 20.
That already happened.
Good for the Cougs.
Interesting.
Okay. But in any case,
I think that Montana State is the team that needs to navigate this schedule.
Yes.
The Cats, even though they're tied with Portland State, Portland State has a tiebreaker because they swept them. They swept Montana State this year.
So it's like being a game behind.
Right.
Yeah.
Montana State beat Northern Arizona, beat Southern Utah, and beat Sacramento State the first time around, each of those 3 matchups. Can they replicate it? I'm not sure. Are they? Because these are very interesting games for the Cats because I don't think the Cats are more talented than any of the teams that they're playing.
Right.
NAU is a very interesting team. They have some dudes, and they're playing above their head now, and a lot of it's just the coaching change, I think.
This weekend right now, this road trip is just titanic, huge for Montana State.
Yep.
They're tied with Portland State. I don't know what Portland State's schedule is coming down the stretch. We'll take a look at it, but they have to win, to me, both of these games. Because these are the two weaker teams in your last 4, and you got to go on the road. That's the way it plays out. But you just have to beat Sacramento State and Northern Arizona. If you're a team that is going to get a bye, that deserves a bye, then these are games that you got to win. And Portland State, is not going to lose. You can't rely on them to go 1-3 down the stretch or whatever it is.
Portland State's at Idaho State, at Weber State, versus Northern Arizona versus Sac State.
Okay, so they have the same 2 teams, but at home.
But they also have Idaho State and Weber State at home.
Excuse
me, they're on the road at those 2, and then they're at home, Northern Arizona, Sac State.
So, Portland State is you have to say they're going to win 2 games at a minimum of their last 4, and probably more, right? For Montana State, you got to win these games this weekend, man, because Northern Colorado in Bozeman on the last game of the season, good luck. Harold Frey scored 5 points at Northern Colorado. Now, certainly Coach Sprinkle and Harold Frey on a senior night, in Bozeman, it's going to be a different game, and they're going to have a game plan adjustment. But Northern Colorado is a good team. Bodie Hume, I mean, they got players now there. So, that if you have to beat Northern Colorado to get a bye on the last game of the season, that's a big ask, man.
Totally. Especially if Northern Colorado's in the mix. I mean, what if Northern Colorado was to win on Thursday in Missoula, and now all of a sudden they're tied with the Grizz? I mean, they could be in the mix for the championship.
Oh, absolutely. It could be a championship game for them. So you need to stack up some W's now. That's what I'm saying for Montana State. Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Take a quick break. It was a great weekend for Coulter and I. I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Why? Right after this. You ready for a new truck? Get to Mildenberger Motors in Hamilton for the best deals on the best trucks. Duramax, Chevy, GMC.
Seafood lovers, it's time to get cracking at the Montana Club's annual Lobster Fest. Feast on one of our 19 mouth-watering lobster dishes, live Maine lobster, succulent lobster tail, and tantalizing one-of-a-kind lobster specialties. 3 big days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, March 5th through the 7th. It only happens once a year. Don't miss it. See the menu at montanaclub.com. The Montana Club's Lobster Fest on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Alignment and Brakes and Shocks and Wheels and Tires. Some tire places don't offer all that, but we do to help keep you safe. It's our Les Schwab Founders Celebration. Get $50 off an alignment. That's nearly half off regular price when you purchase 4 Reputation or Open Range AT tires all month long. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
When it comes to love, RPLS reminds you that there's stuff that really matters, and then there's stuff that really matters. Holding hands, road trips, inside jokes, yeah, that's important, but the difference between BFFs and lifelong romance is commitment, and that's the specialty at RPLS. Gorgeous gemstones, beautiful custom pieces of exquisite craftsmanship, plus experts who can help you seal the deal at a price that meets your budget. RPLS, helping you get the stuff that really matters since 1992. 228 North Higgins, downtown Missoula.
Hey folks, Ryan Tootell and Coulter Nuanez here. Very excited to continue telling you about Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast series. Episode 2 with Mike Montgomery is now out wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Grizz Greats to listen to it. Coulter, our conversation with Mike Montgomery, a lot of fun to do.
When it comes to this epic coaching tree, Mike Montgomery is certainly the tie that binds the entire thing, from taking over from Jim Brandenburg and Brandenburg's Judd Heathcote roots, to the hiring of Robin Selvig and Stu Morrill, to the recruitment of Wayne Tinkle, Larry Kristoviak, to passing on the program to Stu Morrill and then Blaine Taylor. Mike Montgomery, the guy that's kind of kept this whole thing together.
An absolutely outstanding career, and one that started at the University of Montana. Go listen to Episode 2 with Mike Montgomery, Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast. Brought to you by Mike Bryan, Gary Bryan, and Mike Nugent of Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, Blackfoot Communications, the company that connects you more, and Stockman's Bar, a proud supporter of Montana men's basketball for more than 50 years.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter Brooklyn was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Tootell and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Had a great weekend. We hope you had a good weekend. If it was even half of what our weekend was, you had a great weekend, so we're glad. But we felt on a Monday, people trying to figure out how to get through yet another Monday, that we'd, let you be vicarious with us. Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, at 102.9 ESPN on Instagram and Twitter, at Gus Tootell, at Skyline Sports on Twitter as well. First of all, it's a great weekend because it's a Cat Grizz weekend. Coulter, you were in Bozeman on Friday. and then they're through until Sunday mid-morning. I drove over on Saturday morning for the games. Took the whole family with me, which is great. So you could kind of work these things into like a little mini vacation, got a hotel room and did the deal. And brought the whole crew, kids and all, to the women's game. And they had a great time there. It's fun to get the kids involved in the thing. By the way, got to say, too, shout out to Montana State and what they do from a family standpoint. Now, I'm about to give somebody, probably Nick Chakota here, about $20 million. But I know I'm never going to do it, so I'm not afraid to share. Someone, please, build a restaurant and a little bar, something nice, that has an entirely separate and safe children's area. Let them go run around, put like one person in there, an employee to hang out or whatever. There's a couple places that have it, right, Coulter? There's a couple places that have it. But if you are a family, I have decided not to go out to eat so very many times because I'm like, I just don't want to deal with this. And other people at other tables don't want to deal. And I got good kids. I love the kids, but it's just a lot, If there was a space for them while I'm eating food, forget about it. I'd get a season pass to that restaurant. So anyway, that's the one. But when you go to Montana State and Brick Breeden Fieldhouse, they got the bouncy houses for free for the kids to play in. They got cornhole out there for whoever, but for the kids. They have an entire arts and crafts area. Now, I don't know if this is just from Cat Grizz games. I don't think that it is. I don't know, but they got, tables set up with. They even had like free little slices of cake and stuff for the kids and stuff. Now, the room, it's an indoor track and field room. So it certainly has a lot more space that's unused behind the bleachers and in the areas and stuff. But you don't get that in Missoula. You don't get that a lot of places. So a tip of the cap to them, because when you go with your family, the kids of a certain age, they can't do the whole game. They're not going to sit in their seat and, watch this thing. They got to move around. So, anyway, that was cool. That was a highlight. Then
there's a reason that Montana State's averaging 2,500 fans a game for women's.
Right.
Because the matinee is it's like a great family experience.
Unbelievable.
You can go watch the game, and then you can also, my brother goes to these games, and he's working, and he brings his older son.
Yep.
Just because there's so much stuff to do. You say, hey, you just go play over there for a little while. Dad's right here. Okay.
Yep. It's great. So the games were a lot of fun. They went, the way you kind of maybe expected them to go at some level.
Yep.
But it's all, the atmosphere, the environment. Joe Thompson, again, huge shout. Just to watch a guy make for $10,000 what he netted off of that shot, a full court banking
shot. It should have been worth $100,000, man. The odds of that going in, are you kidding me?
It's crazy. It's not. It just doesn't even seem possible. But he hit it, and so shout out to him. And then, you and we drive back to Missoula on Sunday. You came over to the house about 5 o'clock. We went out about 6 o'clock. We managed to get ourselves into the Adams Center at about 7 o'clock, and we watched Breaking Benjamin and Korn. I didn't really watch much of Korn. I think I saw of the actual concert probably a grand total of about 8 to 9 minutes because I was, upside down. I've been knocked over to the ground. Now I got my, face stuck in somebody's back. It was great.
Just loving it.
Loving it.
Yeah, it was a great weekend, man. The Montana State Athletics Hall of Fame banquet was a true pleasure as well. I was teasing Bobby Daly. Bobby and I were buddies in Bozeman when I first moved there before he was even coaching of any sort. He was just selling insurance, and he wanted to get back into it, and he started coaching at Bozeman High. But I was teasing him. I said, man, this is the first time I've actually ever really felt old because I got a buddy that's going into a Hall of Fame. We're actually like real adults now. But the Hall of Fame banquet was great. I wish my phone wouldn't have ran out of memory because Dane Fletcher's speech was so funny. He gets up there and he says, I didn't prepare anything. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a loose cannon. And then my phone went out, and that's where I ran out of memory, and I was like, no! And then he just went nuts, and it was so funny.
Yeah.
But those Hall of Fames banquets, too, are always so interesting because I always learn about somebody I didn't know about before. Here's one for you. Ellie Rudy, pole vaulter, Montana State. Everybody knows she's the only female to ever win a national championship.
Yeah.
Bobcat track and field. There's something way more amazing than a national championship. She swept the Big Sky Conference championships for the duration of her career. She won indoor and outdoor for 4 years in a row. She went 8 for 8. In a sport like pole vault, where if you just miss at the wrong time, it's over. You're done. How amazing is that?
It's amazing.
She was the Big Sky Athlete of the Week 21 times. 21 times. How many weeks was she even competing?
Right.
Unbelievable. I was like jaw dropped. I was like, you cannot dominate your sport. I was telling Bobby, I said, you guys, All-American in the FCS, you ain't got nothing on this lady. Yeah. This lady is killer.
Right.
But no, I thought the basketball games, I thought the Bobcats did a great job of throwing a great show. I thought it was really exciting, great atmosphere. You can just tell Bozeman is just a buzz right now, man. It's the campus, the town, everything's just booming.
I am tired, though, of the new construction for, like, grocery stores or drug stores. Like, you know, I like things that are nice. Who doesn't? That's why you use the word nice to describe them. But, I mean, really? We're going to do a $2 million, new building on a sunglasses hut? I mean, come on.
It's true.
Where's the character?
It's true. It's true.
But
the homogenization is exhausting.
It is.
We could do a whole radio show.
Oh, man.
The perils and pluses and minuses.
The number of hours you and I have spent overlaying these two cities, their pluses and minuses. Tell you what, there's a lot of things to like in the state of Montana. There's a couple things that you kind of go, well, okay. Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 straight ahead. Spent a lot of time talking about the men's game. We will talk about the women's game. You'll hear from both coaches, player, right after this. Hey, at the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. Silver Slipper is your sports headquarters as well. 56 televisions to watch games on. Drink specials every single day. A full liquor store. Tarantino's Pizzeria. The friendliest staff in town. That is a good grouping of things if you are looking for a sports bar. Visit the silverslipperlounge.com for more information. Stop by today. See why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best kept secrets. It's across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Looking great is not just helpful for females. In today's competitive business market, men are finding cosmetic work can give them the edge they need to stay ahead of the game. You're invited to see for yourself how Northwest Plastic Surgery Associates' discreet laser and cosmetic treatment programs are helping men of all ages regain youthfulness and confidence, sometimes in as little as one visit. Northwest Plastic Surgery Associates can help reverse years of stress and time in the sun with skincare and skin rejuvenation services, or let them help you permanently get rid of that unsightly hair on your chest or back. Plastic surgery is losing its stigma among men, and the results have been tremendous. Liposuction, male breast reduction, tummy tucks, it's no secret that men want to look good too, and sometimes a simple procedure can add years to your professional life. Book your consultation and learn how cosmetic treatment can bring your inner beauty to the surface.
Call Northwest Plastic Surgery Associates today, 728-3811, or visit nwpsa.com.
Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast, episode 3 with Stu Morrill is out now. And Coulter, this was a fun one. Stu Morrill, one of the most accomplished coaches in college basketball, got his start as a head coach at the University of Montana.
After spending 8 seasons on Mike Montgomery's staff, Stu Morrill took over as the head coach at Montana ahead of the 1986-1987 season. He helped lead the Grizzlies to their first NCAA tournament berth in nearly 20 years in his final season, and he's widely respected as one of the great offensive minds in the history of college basketball.
He's also one of the most likable guys in the history of college basketball. Wonderful to sit and chat with him. We certainly appreciate it. Check out Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast, episode 3 with Stu Morrill, out now wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Grizz Greats. Grizz Greats, the coaching tree, brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, the company that connects you more, the Bryan team and Mike Nugent from Berkshire Hathaway, and Stockman's Bar, supporting Grizzly athletics for over 50 years.
Have you been hurt or disabled? Are you missing time from work and not sure what to do? I'm attorney Chris Helmer, and Clark Fork Law Offices in Missoula is here to help. Our team specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. We fight for the benefits you deserve. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tootell, Colter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. The Montana men's basketball team beat Montana State for the 19th time in the last 20 matchups Saturday night. In a game that was an offensive struggle and went to halftime 28-20, the Grizzlies emerged with a 59-54 win, holding MSU to just 35% from the floor and 3 of 20 from beyond the arc. In their final regular season Cat Grizz game, Kendall Manuel finished with a game-high 19 points, including 3 of 6 from 3, while Saeed Pridgett finished with 15.
MSU senior Harold Freight led Montana State with 18 points despite being limited by an ankle sprain he suffered Thursday night, an injury he re-aggravated with 2 minutes left in Saturday's game. The win pushes Montana to 13-3, still a game ahead of Northern Colorado and Eastern Washington in the league standings. Montana State drops to 8-8 and are tied with Portland State for the 5th spot in the league.
In the women's game, Montana State dominated from the opening tip to the final whistle, setting a new high watermark for scoring against the Lady Grizz in a 92-78 victory. Montana State had 6 scorers in double figures, including 5 with 15 or more, paced by Fallon Friggi, who had 18. The Lady Grizz had 5 players in double figures, led by Emma Stockholm with 16, but had no answers defensively as the Cats went 12 of 29 from beyond the arc. The win clinches the regular season Big Sky Conference title for MSU.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law. Polaris Studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, how are you? Happy hour number 2, boys and girls, on a Monday afternoon. Thanks for being here. We appreciate that. Tootell and Nuanez on your radios, on your televisions, and on your internets across the world. Happy to be there with you. Thanks for letting us be a part of your day. 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. If you would like to listen live, you go to the website, 1029ESPN.com. You check out the stream. It's available all the time. Thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. And if you're an early riser, or if you're just not driving around, or the time that we're on the radio, it's okay. We got you covered. Listen on the podcast. The podcast is available all the time. Your favorite podcasting platforms, just check out the Tootell Nuanez podcast. It's available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. Colter, the Lady Grizz Montana State basketball game, the women's game, was a 14-point affair when it was all said and done, 92-78. But it wasn't that close. 42-21 was the score at one point.
Yeah, with 5 minutes to go in the second quarter still.
Montana State.
They doubled them up in 15 minutes.
That's right. Montana State had made 8 threes before the Lady Grizz had even made 1. Now, Montana's plan was to go inside, and they were at time. I mean, 78 points is not a small amount of points to score. I mean, they scored some points. They had 5 players in double figures, the Lady Grizz did. But they could not stop Montana State at all at any point. And particularly with the zone, the sort of hybrid zone that they ran in Missoula that had been sort of surprising and very, very efficacious for them in that first matchup against the Cats, Montana State was ready for it on this day. And they went Montana State, 12 of, 29 from three?
Including 8 of their first 12.
That's right. They just buried the ball from outside 12-29. So you're talking about, 36 points from three, and they made more threes than the Lady Grizz even shot in this game. And look, Montana State, hands down, they're the best team in the conference, and this win, with 4 games left, with 2 weeks left in the regular season, clinches the Big Sky Conference tournament. It's pretty remarkable now, 11 straight, how kind of far out ahead of everybody the Montana State women's basketball team is right now.
And the irony is just so cruel for anybody that's followed the Lady Grizz for any amount of time, because they released The House That Rob Built, the documentary, on Thursday, reminding or reaffirming to everybody just the unbelievable dominance that Montana women's basketball had for 38 years under Robin Selvig. And then Montana State not only won for the 9th time in 11 matchups against the Lady Grizz, not only did it on their home court, they also scored the most points that they've scored in the rivalry ever. And
92.
They clinched the Big Sky Conference Championship with the victory.
It's amazing because, look, losing to Montana State at this point, everybody's losing to Montana State. They're the best team in the Big Sky Conference. So that in and of itself is, explicable, certainly. But you're right. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This is happening with 2 programs where the roles were exactly reversed for most of their history. And now, they're not. Congratulations to Tricia Binford and Montana State. They're trimming the nets. And they had a great time of it. And it got the crowd going. And the ovation that team got when they came out during the men's game. Multiple standing ovations. First when they walked out, then they make the announcement over the thing. Then when they left, they just, and they deserve it. They were outstanding. Coach Binford, go ahead.
Well, anybody that doesn't, there's a lot of people that hate on women's basketball, and I think that's just so tired and lazy at this moment in time. But even if you are going to be someone that says, okay, it's just not that exciting to me, whatever, you're just lying if you watch Montana State play this year and you think that they're not exciting. If you're a basketball purist, they are exceptional. They share the ball so well. They have such insane balance. They've 6 players in double-figure scoring for the 3rd time in the last 5 games. They put at least 5 in 6 out of the last 8.
92 points, 92-78 in a 40-minute basketball game compared to 59-54 in the men's game. 12 of 29 from beyond the arc. Just bombs away from Montana State.
And they executed and did pretty much whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that Tricia Binford deserves a ton of credit. I think the team deserves a ton of credit. They have phenomenal chemistry. They just have the makings of a really special team. I couldn't believe that Montana State shot so poorly in Missoula. Couldn't believe that the Lady Grizz decided they were just going to let them shoot. The matchup zone that they were running in Missoula, Mackenzie Johnson said after the game, she said, we were just going to dare them to shoot until they started making it, and then we get a hand in their face. Well, they did that in Bozeman, and Montana State hit 8 of their first 12 threes.
Yeah. Tricia Binford was asked about that very thing, like what changed from the first matchup to the second one when it came to the Lady Grizz defense, and then Montana State's consequently shooting it much better. Here's what she said.
Yeah, I think the first time around we were just really caught up in what it looked like, and second time around we just wanted to be shot ready and basically run our actions and not overthink it. And the last couple of weeks our kids have just really been sharing the ball well and being a lot more shot ready from the perimeter. And fortunately we got off to a hot start offensively. I thought, defensively we had struggles all night long keeping them off the glass, but we were able to survive with our offense.
You don't hear that, first of all, very often. You're able to survive with your offense, but that's exactly what Montana State did. The Grizzly men won because they stalled out the Montana State offense.
Right.
The Montana State women won because they just outscored the Lady Grizz. They just kept filling it up. And by the way, it's not all about the 3. 8 of their first 12, absolutely. That gave them this huge cushion that never really went away. But also, I mean, they scored over 60 points or whatever it is, almost 60 points that weren't threes also. And you talk about the evenness of the scoring. It just almost can't possibly be more even than it was for Montana State.
They scored 92 points with no one in the 20s.
That's right. They have 6 players in double figures. 4 of them had 15 points. All of them, exactly 15 points. Fallon Friggi led the way with 3 points more than that with 18. And it's remarkable the equity that you get, but also the ball movement. I mean, they have Trisha Binford. Now, her offense has always been her calling card, but she has a group of players who are capable, but also has built them to run just an unbelievable team style of offense. I mean, the ball just whips around and the open shooters shoot it. I mean, it seems simple, but it doesn't always happen. In fact, it rarely happens. And so it's, really impressive.
And so much of that, too, we've talked a lot about the 5 seniors, and I think the fact that Blair Braxton has bought into her. I mean, Blair Braxton is the emotional leader of the team, and she comes off the bench. But to have one of the best shot blockers and rebounders in the league as your enforcer who can come in for anybody in the lineup and then you just readjust the lineup, that's huge.
Yeah.
Her and Madeline Smith are always fresh because they basically just split the minutes at the 5. They just play 20 minutes each. And so they're always fresh. And with Madeline Smith, you're getting scoring on the block all day. And with Blair Braxton, you're getting defensive rebounding and toughness. And that in itself makes them so hard to guard. And then you add Fallon Friggi from North Dakota after sitting out. I mean, what a great story.
We'll hear from her in a moment.
And, she's probably the leading candidate for MVP in the league. But we talk about actually who's the person that makes this thing go, who's the most important player on Montana State. It's Darian White. Darian White is, again, she doesn't get freshman of the year. I'm freaking out on this show. She's unbelievable. Her toughness, her endurance, how much energy she brings, her court vision. I mean, we asked Shannon Schrain about her last week leading up to it, and she said, yeah, I knew when I first, because Montana State and Montana, the one area where they both recruit hard, aside from in-state, obviously, is Boise. And Shannon said, I saw Darian White for the first time, and I thought, Trisha's going to love this girl. She's going to love this little point guard. Because Trisha Binford's had a lot of good luck with point guards like herself. Small, tenacious, and Darian White, I mean, man, she's so fun to watch. That was your first time, I guess your second time seeing her, but I mean, she's awesome.
Yep, she's great. Amazing, again, poise and confidence and control. She's in control, which you can't say very often for a freshman. The other side, the flip side of this coin, is Montana, who finds themselves with another loss. Now they've lost 8 of the last 10 to Montana State, and are 9-7 in conference play, and they certainly have everything in front of them in terms of a seed and getting a bye and so forth and so on. But this is certainly a tough one. And Shannon Schwein spoke about, he was asked about when you're down early the way that they were, again, 42-21 at one point early in the second quarter of that game. How hard is it to just keep your team focused and fighting back?
Well, I mean, I liked our little run right before half. I thought we showed some fight there. We kept battling and, going down 15 in today's world of basketball really isn't, the end of the world by any means. So I liked our little run at half. Went in the locker room feeling like we are much better than we executed out there. And, we never really had any back-to-back baskets there in the first half. It was tough to get anything going, any kind of flow. We weren't getting stops, and then offensively we weren't really connecting. Our posts were getting good looks in the paint, and they weren't going down, weren't getting to the line, and so we had some tough series there.
There you go, Shannon Schwein talking about the game and what got out of hand in a hurry. And they did. I mean, they closed the gap to, 12-14 a couple of different times, including right at the end of the game. And so, what looked like it could be, a truly ugly affair became, a respectable basketball game. But
sort of.
It was never, ever, ever in doubt.
Yeah, no, this was a second-round knockout. Montana State straight stroked them to the canvas, and then Montana, it's human nature to take your foot off the gas at least a little bit. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a tight basketball game, what do? Try to exploit the matchups that are to your advantage. So, say this would have been a single-digit game. You just would have thrown the ball to Fallon Friggi and got out of the way. or you would have run actions to get those sort of things. Montana State just ran their standard zone offense for the last 25 minutes of the game. They didn't have to go to any specific matchup. They were just running and running and running and running. And so Montana State deserves a ton of credit, but I also thought that, and Mackenzie Johnson said this in the post-game press conference. She said, we weren't ready to play in this game. We were not tough enough. We did not answer the bell. And you kind of saw it. Montana hung in this game for the first 8 minutes, and then the Bobcats dominated the last 2 minutes of the first quarter. They ran that sweet play where Darian White hit Torrey Martell for a 3 at the buzzer. And Martell hit 3 more in a row in the second quarter after that. That moment really sparked him. And then when Montana was chipping away in the third quarter, same thing. Last 2 minutes of the frame, Montana State just owned it, and then Oleana Squires hits her third 3 of the frame at the buzzer, and Montana State's off and running.
Yep.
So Bobcats were able to pretty much cruise for the last 25 minutes of that game.
It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. If you have spent even 30 seconds with Fallon Frigge, you remember it and are happy that you got the opportunity to. And the story that she has going right now is pretty impressive. And having been at North Dakota, and in no uncertain terms, she made very clear on this show that it did not work out in a good way with her relationship with her head coach at UND. And so she transferred, sat out last year, and came to Montana State to play for 1 season. She got 1 season of eligibility left. It's her senior year. And she was asked, the question wasn't even about the story per se. It was simply about how even the scoring was and the team type of basketball that's being played. You want to hear this?
This is just so special to me. This is what I dreamed of coming here, was just to play with girls that were so skilled and teammates that worked hard every single day. And this is the stuff I envisioned, envision being with a team where everyone can score. It's not just on one person, and cutting down nets and celebrating confetti and water in the locker room. And this is just what I prayed for and what I envisioned. And coming here for my senior year, I can't explain it. It's just really, really meaningful to me, and I know how meaningful this rivalry is, and to win both games, and to have such a bench and such a team supporting you and everyone contributing. There's no better feeling.
And there's your conference MVP, Fallon Frigge, soon to be, presumably. What you don't get there, which we certainly have, and we had her on the show, but just how smart she is. Her basketball savvy is next level, but also just what she wanted. Like, she had an idea. I'm not here to throw anybody under any bus or anything like that. I don't know that I could tell you that I watched one single North Dakota women's basketball game. Okay, but coming out of a statement like that, if you are in a work environment and you are a driven and hardworking person and you do really good work, and the people around you don't. And not even maybe they're not as good as you, but don't even put the effort in to do the work. It is so demoralizing in a lot of ways. It is just it's an impossible situation to be in, and that's what that sounds like to me. And now at Montana State, it's you have this hope and this dream of what basketball in college is going to be like, and then it's the opposite of that seemingly. And then you find the place where it is, where that quote dream is realized. And she's sitting there with a net around her neck that they just trimmed down for being conference champions 2 weeks. I can't over communicate. Basketball is a sport that the conference champion is decided on the last game of the season, almost without exception.
Yeah.
If you are 2 games ahead of the pack going into the last game so that you know that it's a done deal, that is winning by a lap. And they are twice that in front of everybody to be winning this conference tournament on this. It's remarkable, man. It's absolutely unbelievable. And she personifies all of that, Fallon Frigge.
We talk a lot about transfers, and I think that there's a negative connotation with transferring, because I think that there's just kind of the get off my lawn the way of thinking, hey, stick it out, be tough, stop being a young kid, stop thinking the grass is greener lot of times you get a situation where it's just not what you thought it was going to be, and then you're stuck, and you can have a miserable college experience because of it. I mean, Fallon Frigge was the North Dakota Gatorade Player of the Year in high school. I think she had a lot of pressure from a lot of people around her to stay in state. I think there was several girls playing at North Dakota who she had prior relationships with, played with or against. And at the time, North Dakota was really good. I mean, Jean Roebuck is a legend in the women's basketball world, and they rode some momentum after he retired and made it to the NCAA tournament one year. I think that was the year right before Fallon Frigge had committed there. And it came all the way down to Montana State and North Dakota. I know Fallon Frigge went on a visit to Montana State. She really wanted to go there initially. And then she ended up just choosing to stay home. But then I think that, I mean, as she said on the show, the experience in North Dakota was miserable, and she was not having a good time. And it was breaking her down mentally. And this is where transferring works out so well, right? I mean, you heard that. I mean, it changed her life. And it can't be understated how difficult it is and how impressive it is for somebody to come from a different program and walk in and get all the accolades that she got without – I mean, she did not play a second of basketball for Montana State before she was the preseason league MVP. That could be cause for massive resentment in the locker room.
Right.
And it wasn't. And I think that's a testament to her. And, you know, you can walk in and be a great player and fit into the mesh of a team, but to actually be the captain of the team when you're someone that is a transfer, that's amazing. And
but also, when you speak to her and when you watch what you do, it becomes the least surprising thing in the world. That
I mean, her level of
of
maturity is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to her, to Montana State. They are the conference champions. Here's my only hesitation when it comes to Montana State, and I don't think this is going to happen. I think it's a whole different deal. But if I may, the Tampa Bay Lightning last year. Were the President's Cup champions. Yeah. They were the best team in hockey by a country mile, by the same distance that Montana State is. And then they played a bunch of meaningless games and sayonara first round of the playoffs. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's the one thing you have to be cognizant of.
I know what you're getting at, certainly. I'm not trying to pump up Montana State too much right here, but this team is amazing, man. They're so special because I'm always ranting and raving about the intangible elements of basketball, right? It's not about having 25-point-per-game scorers and guys that can throw down spectacular dunks and all that sort of stuff. I mean, if that's what it was about, Montana State's men would have won the league the last couple of years. Who had better shooter than Tyler Hall, a better scorer than Tyler Hall, and a better athlete than Keldon Blevins?
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
And they're sixth place because of a whole bunch of other elements. We talk about playing together, knowing your role, executing from start to finish. Montana State does it better than any basketball team in the Big Sky Conference right now. I mean, what they're doing on offense the last 6 games, last 3 weeks, it's straight up teach tape. It's like they're running practice sets against conference opponents. 92 points was their lowest point total in the last 4 games. They scored 200 points last weekend.
It's crazy. Let me ask you this. Okay, they're 19-6. If they ran the table, they would be 26-6 conference champions.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
20 games over 500.
Yep.
What sort of seed do you think they would be capable of getting?
Man, it's really too bad because Tricia Binford knew this was going to be a special team. She really knew that her 3 freshmen, Darian White, who we talked about, as well as Cole Badberry, Madison Jackson, were going to be able to make an impact. They brought the freshmen to campus early. And those girls practiced with them all summer. And I think that's where you have 5 seniors and 3 freshmen. How do you make it work? The freshmen proved themselves to the seniors all summer.
Yeah.
And then they played a difficult non-conference.
Gonzaga, who was the number 17 or 18 team in the nation.
They're one loss team right now.
Texas A&M, who was the number 11 team in the nation. And they lost those 2 games, 15 to Gonzaga and 9 to Texas A&M, the number 11 team in the nation. They also lost to Wichita State, obviously a very respectable basketball athletics department and basketball program. 2 points. 2 points, 66-64 in that game. So they have that's one loss where you go, man.
Yeah.
If they play a top 10 team in the nation, or top 11 team in the nation to a single score game, have a win against Wichita State in the non-conference, that's where, on the national scale, that's where you start to get noticed. And when you have a 1 in the L column, if it was to be that, in your conference schedule, it's just like, well, yeah, okay, this is a real deal.
Totally. They needed to win one of those games.
Yeah.
Northern Colorado won 25 games last year. They got the 11th seed. Part of that was because they beat DePaul when DePaul was nationally ranked. That one win was the thing that they hung their hat on. To me, it's the women's game when it comes to the tournament. I think Montana State could compete with some teams. They just got to avoid certain teams. in the women's game, so the top teams, the 3 seeds and above, I mean, just forget about it.
Yeah, and I think even more than in the men's game, I don't know, maybe not, but the best teams in women's basketball are stacked up, man.
Oh, so stacked. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You can be so good, and if you get the 15 seed and you got to play UConn, you're losing by 40.
Right.
Like, you're not losing just like a little bit. You are getting drilled.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it does seem, because here's the thing. There's not nearly as many programs that are willing to put the resources into women's basketball as there are into men's basketball. Even though they have a team and all that kind of stuff, and they're competing and so forth. There's a few places, and you know where they are, okay? Baylor, UConn, South Carolina, that it is an absolute priority at those places. And as such, all the top talent is going to a lot fewer institutions to play basketball than what you get in the men's game.
Right, and some of the like SEC schools, they have size that.
Oh, right. I mean,
it would be like playing against 7'4" guys in men's because of the disparity in size. I mean, like that gal who plays center for Texas A&M, forget about it. I mean, she's like 6'8" and she's stacked.
I was in a great mosh pit last night, and my screen setting is outstanding. Okay, just so we know. Take a quick break. We'll go around the Big Sky Conference. What did other teams do, and what does that mean for everybody involved? We'll talk about that and how big. Well, I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that. It was a big concert last night, though. All right. Hey, the Polaris New Year's sales event, it's on, and it's on now. This is the time to find your perfect ride at Kurtz Polaris. Financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months and savings of up to $3,500. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. The mountains are full of snow, and Kurtz has all the best machines, apparel, and accessories to take full advantage of the season. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. The most fun you can have in snow. Kurtz Polaris. Winter awaits.
At Opportunity Bank of Montana, we know that checking accounts are not one size fits all. Let us introduce you to Opportunity Bank's full suite of checking account products, including personal and business options with no minimum balance and no monthly service fee. Or if earning cash back suits you, Opportunity Reward Checking may be the perfect fit. Need to earn interest? We have those options too. Call or come into Opportunity Bank for a checking account that fits you. Opportunity Bank of Montana, serving Montanans since 1922. Member FDIC.
Matcha is a versatile green tea chock full of health benefits. Here at Florence Coffee, our high-quality matcha is full of antioxidants, fiber, and chlorophyll, while providing rich, smooth flavor to any matcha drink. Whether you order your matcha hot, iced, or blended, it'll taste great and give your body the boost it needs. Come to any Florence Coffee location or go to florencecoffeeco.com.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Grizz Grace, the Coaching Tree Podcast, Episode 6 is out now with Pat Kennedy. Pat Kennedy was the head coach of the University of Montana for 2 seasons in 03 and 04, in between Don Holst and Larry Krastowiak. He's the one head coach since Judd Heathcote who was outside the University of Montana coaching tree, and his short tenure as head coach at the UM was largely unsuccessful, going under 500 both seasons. That said, his tenure at the University of Montana also marked a turning point for the Grizzly program. What started with great optimism and eventually led to the program giving way to Larry Krastowiak and Pat Kennedy's personal story are also very intriguing. an assistant coach to the great Jim Valvano, and a head coach to a bevy of first-round NBA picks, including Heisman Trophy winner Charlie Ward at Florida State. Our conversation with Pat Kennedy is both illuminating and highly entertaining. So check out Grizz Greats The Coaching Tree podcast, episode 6, out now wherever you get your podcasts. Is brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, Bar, and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
The Montana men's basketball team beat Montana State for the 19th time in the last 20 matchups Saturday night. In a game that was an offensive struggle and went to halftime 28-20, the Grizzlies emerged with a 59-54 win, holding MSU to just 35% from the floor and 3 of 20 from beyond the arc. In their final regular season Cat Grizz game, Kendall Manuel finished with a game-high 19, including 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, while Saeed Pridgett finished with 15. MSU senior Harold Frey led MSU with 18, despite being limited by an ankle sprain he suffered Thursday night, an injury he re-aggravated in the final 2 minutes of Saturday's game. The win pushes Montana to 13-3, still a game ahead of Northern Colorado and Eastern Washington. Montana State, meanwhile, drops to 500. They are 8-8. They're tied with Portland State for the 5th spot in the league standings. In the women's game, Montana State dominated from the opening tip to the final whistle, setting a new high watermark for scoring against the Lady Grizz in a 92-78 victory. Montana State had 6 scores in double figures, including 5 with 15 or more, paced by Fallon Friggi, who had 18. The Lady Grizz had 5 players in double figures, led by Emma Stockholm with 16, but had no answers defensively, as the Cats went 12 of 29 from beyond the arc. The win clinches the regular season Big Sky Conference crown for Montana State, who is now 15-1, still with 4 games remaining in the regular season. Nuanez hooking up the studio with a basketball hoop. Now I can shoot my waste paper into something for fun. We appreciate that. I'm 0 for 1. You could keep track.
That was a bad miss.
It hit the speaker.
That was just ugly.
Well, it looked uglier on TV. It was pretty good. It was no Joe Thompson, but it was all right. It did hit the speaker, though. I gotta work on that. Maybe I could tear this top sheet off and try this again. It's great radio here. Me shooting baskets. Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. You can check us out on the podcast, Tootell Nuanez podcast. Also, listen to the Grizz Greats podcast. Grizz Greats, The Coaching Tree. Pat Kennedy's episode is out now, along with the first 5, so 6 in total. Bonus episodes, everything like that. And tomorrow, very excited about this, Larry Kristoviak, our interview, our conversation with Coach Kristoviak. Outstanding. One more shot. Can I do better? No. Airball. No excuses. Not good. Coulter, let's take a look around the Big Sky Conference, shall we? On the men's side of things, Sacramento State, they beat Idaho 67-56. Eastern Washington got by NAU. They won by 10, 80-70. Weber State gets a win. They beat Southern Utah. As you mentioned, Southern Utah on the skids. Weber trying to figure it out. They have the talent, too. 82-71, the final of that game. So Weber State gets the dub. And finally, Northern Colorado, they beat Idaho State 85-72. So no real close games. In fact, the Montana State game was the closest game of the bunch. Northern Colorado and Eastern Washington, those wins keep them just a game behind the Montana Grizzlies. Northern Arizona, Sac State, their win kind of helps them, but the most interesting one of these was the Weber State Southern Utah game in terms of the 2 different directions of these 2 schools. And still, Weber State is obviously nowhere near what they've been in years past. It's also impossible for me to just say that it's a bad season, chalk it up. They got no chance whatsoever. Do I think they're going to win the conference tournament or something like that? Absolutely not. But do I think that they can come in and in a one-game scenario beat good teams and knock teams who have visions of grandeur out of the tournament? Yes, I do. And they've been much better this second half of the season, they were like 2-7, something like this to start conference play. I mean, they were bad. They have been much better and above 500 since that time. So if you believe in getting healthy and sort of a team that is, slowly improving in that regard, then maybe Weber State is a team to look at. Where are you at with this group?
Well, the most interesting part about all this is the schedule that everybody has. Because there's so many teams that are clustered together, I mean, there's really only a couple shoe-in wins right now, and that's Idaho and Idaho State. Everybody else is just so even. And I think, first of all, I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
I think that it's a true testament to Travis DeCuire's program and also a true testament to seniors that can see the end is near, that Montana's in first place. And I think that I voted for Montana to win the league, even with all the guys that they lost, even without ever having seen the freshmen play, because I just know that the identity of the program, everybody in the league can't stop talking about the schedule, and it is what it is. And I think it's stupid too, and I think there's a lot of scheduling quirks that are truly unfair. I think that the league has set it up that, like the bylaw on the scheduling where teams only have to come to Montana once, So that's the one trip that stayed solid. It actually makes it so that the Montana trip is one of the easier trips now that the travel partners are like NAU and Sac State. Like, that's a tough trip.
Yeah.
Southern Utah, Northern Colorado. I mean, you're going, look at a map. I mean, that's a long ways to go. But still, Montana, I knew they were going to play hard every single night out, and I think that they have the best coach in the league, and I think that the winning tradition just kind of overwhelms every other element of this thing. That said, would you agree that the fact that Northern Colorado and Eastern Washington have kept pace with Montana every step of the way has spurred the Grizzlies on?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it in those terms. Maybe. I think it certainly has spurred them on when they played Eastern Washington twice, in those two games. And probably, like, do I have a vision of Travis DeCuire or Coach Cobb, taking the standings and go, you think you're good, you're one night away from not being in first place. And there was a time, by the way, where they weren't in first place. They when they lost those two straight to Weber and Portland State, they dropped into second for a time. So I think in that sense, yes. But I also think this is a lot more just about the team themselves and the way that they're built and made up. I feel like this is a team that, regardless of how far ahead or behind or tied or whatever they might be in the standings, that they're finding reasons to play hard and well internally. And I think at this point, and they just got great chemistry. I think it might matter more now, though, because it still is only one game with only 4 to go. So you have to keep winning in order to control your own destiny. And that's the area that I think that it is a factor. Up to this point, maybe a little bit. By the way, when it comes to the standings, Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, it's worth noting the 3 teams at the top, 12-4, 12-4 for Eastern and Northern Colorado, and then 13-3 for the Grizzlies. After that, there's 2 more byes that are going to be out. Northern Arizona is 9-8. They are in 4th spot. They're the only team above 500, other than, in the rest of the league. Okay, they also have played 1 more game than the teams behind them, which is so it's again asymmetric in that respect. But Portland State and Montana State are both 8-8, and then Southern Utah and Weber State are both 7-9. So you're talking about 4 teams that are within 1 game of each other. And one of those teams is getting a bye for sure. And then there's a second bye, which the team is only a half game ahead of the other teams as well. And that's going to be evened out. Whether it's a win or loss, we don't know. But it's going to be evened out in terms of the number of games that are played, obviously. So you're talking about 2 spots that are available to 5 teams. And shoot, Southern Utah. No, Sacramento State isn't even all the way out of it because they're 7-10.
Right.
The irony,
and they still get to play Montana State, and Portland State.
That's right. So they can get stack up wins against teams that they can bring back to themselves.
But NAU has Montana State, and Portland State as well.
The funny thing about this league this year is that the state of Idaho is 6-26. Okay, they're terrible, at least by record, and they, again, I kind of like Idaho for some different reasons. They're tougher than what they're, but at the end of the day, they're 3-13. So is Idaho State. So everybody else is stacking up wins against the Vandals and the Bengals, and that's why they're so close because there's not a 5-win team, And so now all these teams, you got 4 teams within a game of each other, 6 teams within 2 games of each other. I mean, it's and they're all sitting there fighting for 2 spots. So who's going to have a chair when the music stops, as it were? That's the thing. And it might be a lot about schedule. And that's why, again, for Montana State, this weekend, this one, right now, at Sacramento State, at Northern Arizona, gigantic, man. Gigantic. Got to have it.
Gigantic all the way across the league, too, because on Thursday we got Weber State, Portland State. That's a huge game. Portland State still has to play Montana State, and Sac State. Sac State gets to play Montana State, and Portland State. So there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, 4 games left. I think we agree who the top 3 teams are. I think everybody agrees who the top 3 teams are.
Yep.
Who are your favorites to get the 4 and 5 spot?
Portland State.
Me too.
I just haven't seen enough of Northern Arizona to even say what I think.
Right, because they played. I totally agree. I'm totally blind when it comes to NAU because they're
9-8.
Right,
they're alone in 4th place. They're the only team with a winning record.
They have good players
that isn't in the top 3. So I'd probably say them, but
they have good players because they have good size. Brooks DeBishop has really taken the next step. He's one of the leading rebounders in the league. He's leading the league in field goal percentage. He's become a double-figure scorer. That him paired with Bernie Andre gives them a very, very intriguing front court because Bernie Andre is like the jumping jack, long-armed rim runner who can just go nuts with how much he can disrupt everything. And Cam Shelton is turned into a pretty good little point guard, and Luka Dolovich is one of the best shooters in the league. So they have some talent, to be sure. They also have a coach under an interim tag, and they're playing their butts off for him. So, I don't know. I'm a little bit in the dark on NAU too, but so far they've exceeded expectations as much as anybody in the league.
No doubt.
Talking about talent, I think Southern Utah should be the team that's in the mix for a bye, but I just don't know what's going to happen right now. They're on a 4-game losing streak. But like you were saying in the first hour, maybe they get up for the Montana schools in the last weekend of the year.
Right.
So we'll see.
It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We have plenty more basketball coming up throughout the week. Get you ready for the penultimate week in Big Sky regular season play. But next, can you play quarterback in the NFL? We'll tell you, because there's one surefire way to know next.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Alignment and Brakes and Shocks and Wheels and Tires. Some tire places don't offer all that, but we do to help keep you safe. It's our Les Schwab Founders Celebration. Get $50 off an alignment. That's nearly half off regular price when you purchase 4 Reputation or Open Range AT tires all month long. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
You hear the term small business all the time, but what does it mean? The answer is, it depends. Whether you're a one-woman show or employ over 100 people, at Farmers State Bank, your business is never small to us. Find the tools for success at any Farmers State Bank location, or check us out online at farmersebank.com. Farmer State Bank, helping businesses succeed since 1907. Member FDIC.
College basketball madness is happening again, and there's only one place in town to catch all the games, the Desperado. Catch every buzzer beater, every Cinderella story, and every upset on the Despo's 32 TVs, while getting your fill of the best hot wings Missoula has to offer, of course. Bracket busted? The Despo's got you covered there too, with cold drinks by the pint or pitcher. The Despo is your headquarters for NCAA basketball, NHL, and NASCAR too. The Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell, across from the Y.
Hey Gus, you ever heard of Magic Johnson?
Rings a bell.
One of the greatest basketball superstars of all time played for a man named Judd Heathcote at Michigan State. And guess what? Judd Heathcote started his career at the University of Montana.
Coulter, did you know that 2 former University of Montana head coaches have been head coaches in the NBA and 1 on Team USA?
Isn't that amazing?
And that's why we've created Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast. Get it wherever you get your podcast. Just search Grizz Greats.
It's a phenomenal and historic podcast series proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate.
Older people look at the calendar, may think about college basketball, March Madness, various things going on in the professional world, but this is an unbelievable time of year for high school sports.
In February, the competition really ratchets up in high school sports. We're headed toward the state tournaments of both basketball and wrestling, and we'll cover it all at Tootell and Nuanez, 4 to 6 p.m. every single weekday on 102.9 ESPN.
That's right, covering what matters in the state of Montana. Montana's #1 sports talk radio show, Tootell and Nuanez.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tootell and Coulter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
What if I told you the difference between Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes is number of inches between the thumb and the pinky? It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Great to be with you on this Monday evening. Thanks for letting us be on board with you on your day. If you missed anything in the show, listen on the podcast. The podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. Just, check out Tootell and Nuanez, subscribe it, rate it, review it. We appreciate it. It's brought to us by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. Also, check out the Grizz Greats Coaching Tree podcast. It's out now. Episode 6 with Pat Kennedy is up, and tomorrow, episode 7 with Larry Kristoviak. We're looking forward to releasing that one to everybody, but just search Grizz Greats and subscribe to that. It'll show up as soon as it's out. You won't have to wait, wonder what's going on. It'll just be there for you, and we appreciate that. It's brought to us by, again, Blackfoot Communications. Thanks very much to them on that. Stockman's Bar and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. Coulter, Joe Burrow didn't announce today, but said he may have to retire for having even played a game in the NFL, for even being on a team in the NFL, because he was just informed that his hands are only 9 inches as they measure, for the combine, and so evidently now the football will be slipping from his grasp regularly, and he will not be able to continue playing in this game. Trying to find some other $30 million a year job somewhere.
He said, considering retirement after I was informed that the football will be slipping out of my tiny little hands, please keep me in your thoughts.
Yeah. Great tweet, actually. Shout out to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had 9-inch hands, which is not that big. Per ESPN stats and information, the length from pinky to thumb was tied for the smallest among first-round quarterbacks measured at the Combine since 2008. Ryan Tannehill and Jared Goff were the others who had that hand size. And both of them, by the way, were instructed by current Cincinnati Bengals head coach Zach Taylor, notable because the Bengals have, the first pick in the draft. So thanks to David on that. Of the 35 quarterbacks drafted in the first round since 2008, the average hand size has been 9 7/10 of an inch. Are we combining our metric and our imperial systems here? 7/10 of an inch? In any case, Patrick Mahomes was 9 1/4 inches, while Jared Goff was 9 inches. Over the past 10 years, only 3 quarterbacks with 9-inch hands have attempted more than 300 passes. Goff, Tannehill, and Chad Henne. And none of them has a total QBR above 55. Worth noting. Tua, by the way, and Justin Herbert, 10 inches. 10-inch hands. Coulter, now, I think you think you know what I'm going to say about this.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
Before you say what you got to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think people's hands are getting smaller?
What are you trying to do here to me?
I'm asking you, do you think humans in general, I noticed this. Every guy that I know that when I shake, that's over the age of 60, when I shake their hands are huge. I have big hands, and my hands do not compare to my dad's hands and your dad's. I mean, I'm way bigger than your dad. Your dad has huge hands.
That's an interesting consideration because sometimes you shake the old guy, and
I really do think like the girth of your hands, not necessarily maybe the length of your fingers, but like the girth of your hands and the size of your hands. If you work all the time with them, it's just natural that they're going to be bigger.
Let me
like
ask
my dad.
You
I mean, your dad worked in the forest for his whole life. My dad worked in the underground mines for his whole life. Like their hands are just different than our hands. And then, like I was at the Hall of Fame banquet shaking hands with all these old guys who are 5'9" that have just whopper-sized hands.
Well, I mean, you're at a Hall of Fame banquet for a reason. I mean,
True.
I think Jack McGillis has big hands. He's not old.
Yeah, he's like 6'7".
So here's the thing, though. Usually on stuff
Ryan
like
is
this,
like 20 years my senior, and his hands were smaller than mine.
that's right. We measured today.
Interesting.
Mine are 8 3/4, and David's are an even 9 inches. I think my hand weighs more than yours, though, David. You know, I don't know if there's a good way.
You got me on the weight thing for sure.
Yeah. Usually on stuff like this, I go, this is so stupid. You know, the quarterback height thing and all that kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. Momentum between games isn't a thing. You know, are you being pushed? Because, I always poo-poo all that stuff. I actually buy the hand size thing about as much as I buy anything in this sort of scenario. The amount of control that you have as a quarterback over a football is a absolute direct relationship to the size of your hands. Now, this is not me saying a guy with 8.5 or 9-inch hand can't be a great quarterback. It's certainly not me saying that a guy with an 11-inch hands is going to be a great quarterback. But what I am saying to you is if you have ever picked up a basketball and then you went and picked up a mini basketball, which one, can you deal with better? If you throw anybody out there that's ever thrown a football, you get a kid's football or one of these, youth footballs, you are Patrick Mahomes. You are ripping that thing. Well, it's the same thing. The relationship to the size of the ball that your hand in particular is absolutely matters. Do I think that all of a sudden Joe Burrow should retire? No, I do not. But this is a bigger deal than Joe Burrow wants you to think it is. That is significant.
It didn't seem to impact his throws during the national championship game.
For sure.
I mean, I guess it's a different football. The NFL is a bigger football.
It's a bigger football. And the windows are smaller. And it's not even so much, it's not always even about throwing the football. It's about, holding on to it when you get pressure in the pocket, and it's all of that stuff.
So his hands were exactly 9 inches?
So it's,
reading that?
Yep, 9, yeah.
So Patrick Mahomes' hands are a 1/4 inch bigger?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem to be much of an issue for Patrick Mahomes either.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Is that right, David, that he's only a 1/4 inch bigger, Patrick Mahomes' hands?
That's what they were measured at in the combine.
9 1/4 inch. I mean, if you think about it in terms of a distance, it ain't much. If you think of it in terms of percent, I mean, what's the biggest hands that have ever been measured?
Remember there was a story that Bryant McKinney's hands. Remember Bryant McKinney?
Oh yeah,
from Miami played for the Vikings.
Sure.
That his hands were like one of his hands was as big as a catcher's mitt, like from in length and width. I don't know how many inches that amounts to.
You want to see some big hands?
The largest hands for a QB was Brian Lewerke from Michigan State, 10.625 inches.
What a player.
What a player. So 10.62. So here's all I'm saying, Coulter. If the average is 9 7/10 of an inch, okay, then what you're telling me is on the high end, about 10.5 inches is a huge hand, and on the low end, 9 inches is a small hand. So what I'm saying is a 1/4 inch is not much bigger, but as a matter of percentage of 1.5 inches that is the spread, the range we're dealing with, it is. I mean, it's 1/6. It's 18% larger in terms of, the difference from big to small. Again, this is not an indicator. There's so much more that goes into it. It is an indicator, so it's certainly not definitive. But I think that the hand size measurement is actually a real thing. You hate that.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
But if you could throw it, you could throw it. I mean, it's like if you have a funny-looking shot, but it still goes in. Sean Marion's got a funny-looking shot. He made the All-Star team a whole bunch.
Right.
Yeah. If it hasn't impacted Joe Burrow to this point, I just don't know why it would.
Yeah, I mean,
here's what it takes to be an NFL QB, more than having big or small hands. It takes an insane amount of internal confidence.
Let me ask you this.
And Joe Burrow has that.
Is it just physically, okay, you got all the internal confidence. Is it more important to have a strong arm, a.k.a. be able to rip the football, or have bigger hands?
Ask me one more time.
Is it more important physically to have a strong arm to be able to throw the football hard, or whatever they classify as hard at the NFL level, or to have bigger hands?
I think it's about what's between the ears.
I understand that. I'm moving all that stuff out.
How big are Joe Montana's hands? Probably not that big.
But you're not answering my question. I'm just saying, with everything else, just throw it all out. That's all far more important than either of these things.
Right.
What's more important between those two? Hands or arms? Arm strength.
Arm strength.
I disagree.
Joe Montana's hands are 10 inches.
Oh!
Okay. Okay, Joe.
And a weak arm. Thus giving me the dub at the end of the show. Thank you very much for that. Hey, Mildenberger Motors in Hamilton. Family owned for over 65 years. Best prices on new and used cars and trucks. Only at Mildenberger Motors. Boys and girls, this has been a fun Monday show. Appreciate it very much. Where are you at with Miley Cyrus? You're into it?
No.
Oh, it's a great song. Let's see if I can get one. One shot to go. It's short again. I'm going to make a shot into our new basket.
See you tomorrow.
Seafood lovers, it's time to get cracking at the Montana Club's annual Lobster Fest. Feast on one of our 19 mouth-watering lobster dishes, live Maine lobster, succulent lobster tail, and tantalizing one-of-a-kind lobster specialties. 3 big days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, March 5th through the 7th. It only happens once a year. Don't miss it. See the menu at montanaclub.com. The Montana Club's Lobster Fest on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
Hey Gus, you ever heard of Magic Johnson?
Rings a bell.
One of the greatest basketball superstars of all time played for a man named Judd Heathcote at Michigan State. And guess what? Judd Heathcote started his career at the University of Montana.
Coulter, did you know that 2 former University of Montana head coaches have been head coaches in the NBA and 1 on Team USA?
Isn't that amazing?
And that's why we've created